Today we are interviewing Elise Brewer and Francis Slipp.
They have some very interesting stories, so let's get on with the interview to see what they have to say. What is your full name?
My name is Francis Robertson Slipp.
Elsie Brewer Gunter. Elsie, long way, but...
Would you like to tell us what year you were born?
1932.
Okay.
Well, I was born September 2nd, 1933.
Can you tell me about your family?
Does that mean my immediate family, my family?
Anything about your family, like when you're younger? Or
Oh, well, I had an older brother. He was 5 years older than me. And I have a young brother. He's 3 years younger than me. And he lives on the homestead.
What are their names?
Charlie was my oldest brother. He lived in St. John. And Norval is my young brother.
What about your parents?
My father's name was Hazen Robertson, and my mother was Edith Straight Robertson.
Can you tell me about your family?
Well, I was the only girl in my family. I had two brothers. One was 20 years older than I was, and the other one was 16 years older than I was, so I was a baby.
She was spoiled.
What were your brothers' names?
Medora Robertson, sister to France's father, Hazen. So that makes us cousins. Yeah, they were brother and sister. And she lived in Robertson's Point, and I lived in Jemseg, so we were together. We were like sisters. We were together a lot. And my father was a carpenter and a farmer, and I guess that's the family.
What's the story behind the name of Medora?
Oh, Medora was my mother, and we had two great uncles who went out west when they were young to find work like a lot of other young people did at that time. And they lived there and had their, well, I guess they started out as ranchers, didn't they? And they were ranchers for Theodore Roosevelt. Yeah. And of course he wasn't president then, but he had a ranch, he had cattle, and they hunted together. They were guides for him. And they lived in a place at one time called Medora. So my mother was named after that particular place. And she did visit when she was 19. Was she 19?
I think so.
1908, I think.
They went there because it was as far as the train went at that time. They got on the train in St. John and they didn't know where they were going. And they ended up in Medora.
Yeah. And then the old uncles came home and married. They each found a wife and took them back to the west. And my mother went out to visit them. That's how come she was out there. And Francis and I have both been out to see. We had one old uncle, was Uncle Joe, and he had a store. Was it Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they have a replica of the old store now, and it's very interesting to us. And we were like celebrities when we got there because, oh, this is, Joe Ferris' relative, and you...
Well, my father went with us, and we went in the store, and there's several young people there. And I said, I'd like to introduce Joe Ferris's nephew, my dad. Well, they just were so excited, and they go to the phone, and they phone up this lady that owns a lot of the little gift shops and the hotel, and there was a dollhouse there. Remember the dollhouse? Has a little fence around it that's like cut-out dolls. Yeah, it was quite exciting.
What were your brothers' names?
Walter and Clifford.
Okay.
And they're both gone now, of course.
So how was school like when you guys were younger?
Oh, dear. Well, I had to go 3.5 miles.
Every
And there was no school bus.
Where did you go to school?
White's Cove.
Okay.
It was a little white schoolhouse then. And we'd leave home, my goodness, 7:45, I think, and meet with the mailman that was on his way to Young's Cove. He'd drive us up to the school. And the school would be cold. The older boys had to put the fire on. And we would go across the road to where Horton Hetherington lived and stay at their house until the school got warmed up.
Where did you go to school?
Jumseg School. And there was we had a furnace.
Oh, did you?
We did have a furnace. And, I shouldn't say this. We used to stand, we'd be so cold when we got there that we'd stand over the grate to get warm, and I can remember our garters would get real hot. Almost burn our legs. And yeah, I had quite a long ways to walk too, but we sure got exercise. And yeah, we went early, and we didn't get out till 4 o'clock, did we?
No, it was 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then walk all the way home, and it'd be supper time, and you'd be so tired.
And in the wintertime, sometimes if there was a lot of snow and they weren't usually plowed, we'd ski. And we'd all hop on our skis and ski to school.
Oh, we didn't do that. Dad would come with a horse and sleigh and bring us home. He had a great big green sled, and he'd have hay on the bottom of it. And he would take as many kids that needed to go down the road.
The only time that we got a ride in the wintertime would be if there was a really bad storm. And then somebody would come and pick us up.
Well, the snowplow was horses with boards made like this at the front. And so it wouldn't get right down to the ground. It was still hard walking.
What were some of the fun things about school, or some of the things you used to do when you were younger?
Just not in school.
Yeah.
Just anytime.
Yeah.
Well, we skied and we
Biked a lot.
And we'd walk home from school a mile or mile and a half, whatever it was, and then we'd get our sleds and we'd go and slide downhill.
And we skated a lot.
We skated a lot. We used to skate on the lake and the river, and it never seems to be smooth enough anymore. I don't know what the reason is for that. And in the house we played tiddlywinks.
Crokinole. And donkey, remember donkey?
You mean as pin the tail on?
No. Remember there were little cards with numbers on?
Oh,
And Grammy would play with us?
yeah.
You said you were like sisters when you were younger. Do you have a lot of funny stories with you two?
Oh, I remember walking from my place to your place with Walter.
Oh, I remember that too.
And he would be scaring us with stories because it was an old barn on the way. What was the guy's name?
I can't
And
remember.
he'd say that whatever his name was looking out the window at us. Of course, he was long dead. So we'd be scared. We couldn't get close enough to Walter.
And we both want to get on the side that wasn't close to the barn.
Yeah. What else did we do? Go to,
We played paper dolls.
we played dolls till we went to high school. We did. We didn't want anyone to know that.
We used to take the old catalogs, the Simpson and Eaton catalogs, and cut the people out, and then we cut furniture out and put them all on the windowsills and make rooms, and it was did you ever do that?
I had Barbies.
That's right.
Oh, we didn't.
No Barbies in our day.
I've still got some of my dolls. I've got a Shirley Temple doll
Really?
that was given to me. Yeah, she still has her same dress and shoes.
You know who Shirley Temple is?
Yeah. What was it like when you were at home? Like, what chores did you have at home?
Chores?
Yeah. Did you have any chores?
My grandmother lived with us. So there wasn't much that Grammy and Mum wouldn't do. There wouldn't be much left for me. And as a result, I went to St. John to go to Modern Business College, and I didn't know how to do anything. I'd go home on the weekend, Mum would look after my wash, send me home to St. John with food. I was really spoiled.
I don't remember chores,
No?
really. I remember in the summertime, sometimes I'd pick some strawberries and
Where did you pick strawberries?
at our own farm.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I had to too.
And I think maybe we got 1 penny a box.
It wasn't very profitable.
No.
But you could go to the canteen, which was at the point, and get a pop for 5 cents or ice cream. You know, your money went a long way then.
So, what did you do after school? What did you become? Did you go to college or anything?
Yeah, I went to St. John, to Modern Business College. And then I worked at the telephone company, and then I worked at T.S. Sims. They tore the building down just this past year. And when I got married, I went to Ontario, and I worked at T.S. Sims in Toronto.
What about you? What did you do?
I went to a business college also in Fredericton. And after that, I worked for the federal government and did that until I was married.
When did you get married?
1955 in Fredericton at George Street Baptist Church.
And she wore my wedding dress, because I got married the year before her.
Well, actually, I had my own dress, but then you had a coat.
Yeah.
And I think I wore your headpiece.
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is now.
No, we didn't have to pay $2,000 or $3,000 like modern people do.
Who did you marry?
I married David Brewer from Woodstock.
And who did you marry?
I married Charles Slipp from Lower Cambridge, and we were married in Gemsite Baptist Church.
Oh.
Yeah. So I feel very comfortable there.
Did you have any children?
Yes, I had 3 children, 1 boy and 2 girls, Chris and Kim and Karen. And Karen and Chris live out west, live in Edmonton, and Kim lives in Oromocto. And I have 3 grandchildren, unlike you who have
10.
Who are your children?
I have 4 girls. My oldest daughter is Nancy, and she lives in London, England.
Oh.
And loves it. She teaches yoga right now. She's going to turn, well, they're not say it. She doesn't like anyone to know how old she is, but she's getting up there. And then I had twins, Debbie and Diane. And one lives in Toronto, right downtown Toronto, and the other one lives in Waterloo, Ontario. And my youngest girl is Elizabeth, and she lives in Halifax. And I was a busy mama.
You would be with 4 children, especially all girls.
Have you always lived where you are now?
No. I left home when I was only 15 maybe, and went to Gagetown to high school because there was no high school in our area. So everybody went to Gagetown and boarded. And so then I went to St. John and worked down there. At 54, I got married, and my husband worked in the Bank of Nova Scotia in Ontario. So away I went to Ontario, and I thought, oh my gosh, it took us about 3 days in those days to get to where we were going. And I thought, oh, I'll never see home again. And we were up there for about 35 years. And my husband took early retirement. And we asked Dad if we could have a piece of land on his property. And he said, oh, I think it'd be wonderful. So he lived for about 6 years, and it was wonderful. I would just visit him every day. And then Elsie, I don't know how many years we had been there. It wasn't long, 3 years maybe, and you moved over.
Sorry.
How long did you live away?
How long did I live away? Well, like Francis, I went to high school and business college, and then got married and lived in Fredericton, moved to Woodstock, moved to St. John, moved to Riverview, and stayed in Riverview 29 years. And then we had a cottage, and that was Frances' story.
Oh, yeah, she came to my door one day crying, and I thought her mother probably had passed away, but she was all excited that her brother had given her a piece of land to build a cottage, and then they finished it into a home. But we were so excited to be so close together. It's been wonderful. And our two husbands really liked each other, and we would do things together. We used to play 45s every night. Not every night, every Saturday.
45s
And Romeo.
Romeo. Yeah, I think it goes by other names. You probably know it by another name, but yeah, Saturday nights, that's how we passed our time a lot of the time.
And we skied a bit together.
We did. And we went out at night one time to ski.
Thinking we were young and we could do this.
And my husband Dave, we couldn't see him for quite a while, and then finally he caught up with us, and there was blood dripping from his nose and from his head, and he was a mess. He'd fallen down face.
His jacket was probably the end of it.
He was okay. He kept on going, but it was just a kind of a laugh for us at the time, which we shouldn't have probably laughed. But anyway, we were friends until Charles' death, and we all miss him.
Yeah.
So when you guys were in high school, what fun things do you guys do?
Go to dances. Saturday night dances. You wouldn't miss one. The White Hall that's at Cambridge, I don't know what it's used for now, but there were dances there every Saturday night. And Sundays, I'd go swimming, and my feet would be black and blue from people stepping on my feet all night. You wouldn't sit down, you just danced all night. And then,
not all night.
Oh no, and then we used to go to the Knights of Pythias Hall down Lower Jemseg. It isn't there anymore. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the Pythian temple.
Yeah, it was a beautiful floor.
Our neighbor's house. Yeah.
That's when we came home weekends, which we always
Yeah.
did, come home weekends. When we stayed, I can't remember what we did. I just remember horse racing on the river. And that was a big thing.
Over at Gagetown.
In Gagetown. And it would be an all-afternoon event, and we'd all gather, socialize.
We had a little bit of fun in Gagetown, going to high school,
Oh, yeah, sure we did.
because there were so many girls and everybody was boarding. Nobody would say, you can't go out today. You got to stay home and study.
Yeah, we did a little studying.
Oh, yeah, we had to, but it was fun. Mrs. Duke, where I lived, she was the best cook.
So how do you guys think this changed from then to now?
The changes are enormous, I think. In every way, really.
You don't see kids out playing anymore. That's what I notice. You can drive past houses, they're not... Like, we had a pond on the property, and we would skate on the pond.
And we boat on the pond.
We used to play we were lumbermen and go to the woods and cut these little sticks.
we had great imaginations, and I'm sure children do still, but during the war, we would be on our bicycles, and we would drive, well, she's at Robertson's Point, which is a beach, and we'd drive on our bicycles and pretend we're meeting our boyfriends who would be in the army, and that was what we pretended to do.
Yeah, the war was a big thing. And Walter, Elsie's brother, was in the army and overseas. And we used to just mourn for him.
Oh, yeah. And we'd write to him. He'd write back sometimes.
I found a letter that I had written to a man that used to work with Dad, and he was overseas. And it was so cute. And he came, I'd never mailed it. I had written it. And then he came to visit me one day. And I said, Horace, I'm going to show you a letter that I wrote to you in 1942, I think it was. And it was about swimming. And that's what we used to do, too, is go swimming in the summer.
Oh, yeah. In fact, we used to, if it was raining, it didn't matter, we'd go swimming anyway. But we'd take our umbrellas and use them till we got down to the water's edge, and then we go into swimming.
How long away did you live from where you were born?
Oh, 10-minute walk,
Yeah.
which is a wonderful feeling. Yeah, love it.
Where were you born?
Oh, I was born at her house up in Robertson's Point, at my actual birth, because it would be my grandmother's place. And I suppose she was looking after my mother, so that's where I was born.
And how far do you live now, would you say?
Oh,
A 20-minute walk?
probably, yeah.
And she's on the property of your Gunter relatives, Aunt Stella and Uncle Les.
Yeah.
We're very family-oriented.
What accomplishments were you the most proud of?
I think my children.
I was going to say the same thing.
Oh, yeah. I went away this winter, visited one in Halifax, and then I went to Florida, and 3 girls visited me there. Then I came to Toronto and visited 2 of my girls there. I mean, the winter was gone, and it was super duper. They just waited on me. Yeah, I'm proud of my children. And my grandchildren. I've got 10 grandchildren. I've got 8 girls and only 2 boys.
Wow.
And they're all very special. And I have birthstones of them right here in my necklace. They're just with me all the time.
Back and forth.
Well, my grandmother that lived with us never stopped talking about her 2 brothers that went out west because they didn't hear from them very much. They'd come home now and again, and they felt that they were way above the farmers that were still in New Brunswick. But they came home one time, and Elsie's mother went back with them. And how long did she stay? Was it 6 months?
6 months.
And then she got a letter from her father.
Well, no, I think she was just there for 6 months.
Yeah, but remember the letter from her father saying that it was time she came home?
Oh, no.
You don't remember
I
that?
don't remember that.
You've been there a long time, and it was time she came home. Oh, where am I going with that?
We're off track. Yes, the 2 uncles, I call them the old uncles, they weren't always old, but they went out west on the train that went every summer because people were looking for work, and they had to go out west. So I get the 2 uncles mixed up, but Uncle Joe ended up in Manitoba, and did they go at the same time?
I think they went at the same time.
Yeah, and obviously they got work, and then Theodore Roosevelt, who wasn't president, he was a hunter, and he was looking for someone to guide him hunting buffalo, and they said Joe Ferris was someone who they'd recommend, so he hired him, and that's what they did. They hunted buffalo and hunted everything else, I think, as far as we know, and from the books we've read that Roosevelt wrote, and their names are in the book. And then they stayed.
They stayed and became ranch hands
Yeah.
because Teddy Roosevelt bought this farm. And when I was out there, we went to where the farm was, and it was across the Little Missouri River. And there was always a picture in our upstairs hall of
President Roosevelt.
no, Joe and Lily with the horse and
Oh, I
buggy
see.
going across this river.
Well, then Roosevelt gave up his, he kept cows,
Yeah.
and he gave that up and went back, became president. I was going to say prime minister, became president, and
But there's a lot of years in between
yes.
there. And they went to the White House when he became president, and they had to go through a security gate. And they weren't going to let the boys in. No, you can't go in there. And one of them said that tell Teddy Roosevelt that it's the boys that threw the chicken across the kitchen table. So they told him, and he said, let them in. And on that visit, they were each given a gold watch. And my grandmother fretted, where have those gold watches gone after they were deceased? And my brother and his wife went to visit Joe Ferris's grandson. And he had a little museum of stuff from this era. And there was a gold watch. But Grammy was long gone by then, so she never knew. Well, Sylvain ended up in California.
Yeah. Well, after that, after their time with Roosevelt, they one opened a little general store, and the other one, I think, sold or gave away, or whatever they did back then, land so that people would settle out there. And then when they retired, one went to California, and
Well, didn't he own a bank, Sylvain?
I really
I think
don't know.
so.
I can't remember all the particulars.
And Joe went to Sydney, Montana, and had a store there. And your mother went with them,
That's right.
and they went by caravan. And your mother was there for Christmas, and they made aprons for presents. And a waist, which I don't know what a waist
A
is.
waist is a blouse.
Oh. Well, they had things like that for Christmas presents. And we went to Sydney, Montana, and we went to the museum. And we were treated like celebrities. It was amazing. And they brought out there's always a picture at home like this of Teddy Roosevelt and Sylvain and Joe and a man named Merrifield.
Merriweather.
Merriweather?
Merriweather, yeah.
And they had the same picture. Couldn't believe it. After all these years, I was looking at that in the parlor, and oh, please put that away, these old men. Anyway, Uncle Joe's great-granddaughter visited me a few years ago. She lives in Saskatchewan. So that was interesting to meet her.
And there was another, the other one came from Washington.
Oh, yeah. She was a granddaughter.
And she said she just felt in the old Roberson's house, it felt homey to her.
Where her great-grandmother had come from.
Yeah.
She and my dad sat there and talked, and she was this beautiful lady. So it's been quite a story. Quite a life.
It could have been told better, but
So now you know all about me, Emma.
Would there be any closing words you two would like to say?
well, this has been enjoyable and different than I expected. I didn't think I was going to be on camera and a star.
Well, I feel very blessed to be back home and be near my cousin, sister, and so many people that I know. I feel so comfortable because I spent so many years not knowing, moving from village to village, town to town. Oh, we lived in Toronto, and there's all these different nationalities. And I feel very blessed to be back home.
And I tell her she better not die before me.
On behalf of me and Emma, we'd like to say thank you for your time.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yes, of course.